Good afternoon and welcome back to another ironic introduction to another video. Today I'll be breaking down the Spring Cleaning 2021 deals. As always, there's a link to the spreadsheet in the description below and timestamps for Thronebreaker, Cavalier, and Uncollected as I go over my thoughts on all of the bundles. Big shout out to Mr. Lutz. I've got you tagged here in the spreadsheet as well. Without your help, I would not have been able to break down Cavalier and Uncollected, so I super appreciate you sending that information towards me, and I really appreciate your help. That said, before I dive in, quick disclaimer is remember that when you purchase unit bundles, the amount of units you get per dollar increases the more amount of money you spend on each transaction. At the $5 bundle, you get 27 units per dollar. At the $100 bundle or the Odin's bundle, you get 31 units per dollar. And this might not seem a lot when it's only a 4-unit spread, but keep in mind that is an 80-unit difference at the end of the day. Not as big of a deal, but the biggest deal here is actually in the doubloons per dollar. If you are purchasing the $5 bundle, you only get 1890 doubloons per dollar, whereas if you purchase the Odins, you get 4050 or 4050 doubloons per dollar. This is more than double the amount of doubloons per dollar. So if you're not sure how much money you're spending, you're going to want to take a moment, sit back, and honestly properly check it out and figure it out, because you want to purchase the largest bundles to make sure you get the most amount of doubloons per dollar and really save yourself and make sure you optimize that purchase. If you're looking at the piggy bank and you're spending on the smaller side, maybe you don't care about his units, you're a grinder, you push the arena, you care more about the doubloons. Do keep in mind that the $5 bank, when maxed out, is worth the $10 in the form of doubloons. So if you're on the lower spending market and you're not as concerned about units, which you very well might be if you're trying to pick up specific deals, do keep in mind that you can save a little bit of money on the $5 bank as long as you're not spending more than $30 on doubloons. Now that said, for Thronebreaker, and all of the deals, actually the way I've segmented the deals is I have the cost in doubloons, I have the cost equivalent in dollars per bundle, I have the limit of bundles you can buy, and then the total cost assuming you bought all of the bundles. And then for the spreadsheet itself, I've separated all of the items you can purchase, and then I've put it at the amount of value you are getting per dollar. This way you can compare across the board and actually see, hey, where am I getting the most amount of resources for my same equivalent cost? Even though the total cost in doubloons might go up, doesn't necessarily mean that you're getting more resources per dollar. And that's something that's important to remember. If you're looking for something specific, all you're going to do is go, hey, I want tier 5 CC. Then you can look across and go, these are my 4 options for tier 5 CC. And then you can base your decision based on the highest quantity or whether or not you value selectors more than you value quantity, etc., etc. Now, my thoughts on Thronebreaker is the fact that for 6-star shards, I don't think this class nexus is worth it. I think a lot of people see class nexuses and they go straight for it, but the reality is that the class nexus will be worth it for people who are hunting a specific 6-star. And if that's your case, I'm not even trying to argue against you. Do what you want to do. But for most players, they probably have at least one 6-star they would be interested in getting across the classes, or maybe even at least 4 or 5 classes, in which case the value of the class nexus goes significantly downward when compared to a regular nexus. And then especially when compared to shards. Now, the way I typically do nexuses is because you're choosing 1 and 3, I value the shard equivalent, or in this case 0.046 or 4.6% of a 6-star as 3 times that quantity. In this case, it's about 13.5% of a 6-star crystal that I see, because in my head, quality over quantity in that regard. So even though you're only getting 1 6-star because you have the option of choice here, it just really raises the stakes on whether or not you're going to get something you want. So when I look at the nexus and I compare it to shards to decide which one I value more, I compare the 3 times value to the shard value, and in that regard, I think this nexus, the generic nexus, is worth more than the shards you get over here. Equivalently so, these shards are worth more than this class nexus, because this class nexus when tripled is only 0.06, which is significantly less than the 0.085 and the 0.09. Now, the next thing is the tier 5 class catalysts. In this form, you can get significantly less T5CC in the form of choosing a selector rather than going for quantity if you just go for crystals. The thing about that is that I personally think this raw quantity is worth more. There are situations where if you're looking for a specific class, that selector might mean more, in which case, I could see an argument for that. My biggest thing is just remember that every month you do have the potential to take that 10% Nexus crystal, and you're gonna get there eventually, and in the long run, choosing quantity over quality is going to reach a farther and larger rank 3 roster. So it might not feel as good in the short term, but in the long term, it's going to pay out dividends. The next thing is signature stones, 6-star 6 stones in particular. You only have 2 options, the options for 0.6 6 stones per dollar or 0.75. Now, you might think the generics are significantly more value, and if you have a specific champion you're looking to sig up, then yes, but if you're sigging up for prestige, which many players are, the crystals are just as values as generics, since you're dumping them into whoever the prestige target is anyway, so the generic doesn't mean as much. Additionally, the generics are paired with a 5-star Nexus, and the 6-star Sig crystals are paired with tier 5 basic. So I'll personally be opting for the 6-star crystals with the tier 5 basic, as that 5-star Nexus really just doesn't hold a lot of value for me. And then finally is the 6-star Awakening Gem. The last thing I want to talk about. This is 18 times worse than the 6-star shards you get in bundle 3, and I understand that a 6-star Awakening Gem, you know, especially if you have 4 classes you would have a champion you would awaken, this is the first time we've really seen this available for purchase. It's just a really bad deal at $200. It's just too costly when you think about the fact that you get 5 to 6 6-stars here easily, and 3 of those would be Nexuses, maybe 4 of them are Nexuses and 1 is a class Nexus. Like, just the raw quantity of 6-stars you are opening here, it just means so much more. I'm sure there are a lot of people who will probably pick up the 6-star Awakening Gem, specifically if you're someone who's already dropping like $400, $500 totally, but if you're trying to spend like $100 or $200, I personally don't think this is a very good bang for its buck. If you disagree, feel free to let me know in the comments. Next up is Cavalier. Now for Cavalier, my general recommendation is don't really eyeball the 6-star shards. Now sometimes the 6-star shards are a really good deal, and they're not too big of a discrepancy between Cavalier 6-star shards and Thronebreaker 6-star shards. In this case, in this situation, that's not the case. You hit similar here on Cavalier compared to the class Nexus, but when you think about the fact that Thronebreakers are getting to choose a class and a Nexus, and you're just getting a raw 6-star, you might really want to eyeball that 5-star roster instead. That's my general recommendation, especially since in Cavalier, you really want to stretch the depth of your roster. Now, if you're at the end of Cavalier and you're pushing into the 6-star meta, totally just ignore that bit. Do your thing with your 6-stars and push into Thronebreaker soon. But just generally speaking for Cavalier players, it's very easy to get blinded by 6-stars when you're losing out on value when you could be opting for 5-stars instead. It's just a small recommendation. The next thing is, for you, all you're essentially going to do, they kept it pretty cut and dry because there's not as many selectors or nexuses here, is you're pretty much just going to say, hey, what am I looking for? And then you're going to go ahead and find the largest quantity. Yes, there's a nexus option for 6-star. Yes, there's a nexus option for 5-stars. In those situations, though, they actually did set the values high enough that you just do pick the nexus instead, especially when you take into factor my 3 times rule for nexuses. And so in that regard, they did make it very easy. You just go ahead, find the highest value that you're looking for, the highest quantity per dollar, and you go ahead and purchase that one for whatever resource you're looking for. Next up is Uncollected. Uncollected for you, essentially, Kabam did make it very easy for you to purchase. Essentially, you're going to find whatever resource you want on this spreadsheet. Go ahead and find the largest quantity per dollar, whatever the highest value here is, and then you're going to go ahead and purchase that for whatever you happen to be looking for. There's not a ton of Nexus and Selector options, / when they are there, you are relatively safe to pick those instead of the equivalent to higher quantity values instead. Because, for example, Bundle 8 in Uncollected, you get 0.05 or 5.2% of a Nexus / 5-star crystal equivalent, compared to Bundle 2 where you're getting like 2.5% more. But in this regard, selectivity is just worth so much more that you're pretty safe going for selectivity. Or honestly, you could go for raw quantity too, because 5-stars, you're just trying to build that depth of roster, so there's no harm in doing that either. So really, you can just do whichever one makes you feel good, because the quantities are relatively close enough that it's not going to negatively impact you too much one way or the other. But again, generally speaking for you, what you're going to do is is just find the resource you want and then pick it. My biggest thing for Uncollected is that if you're Uncollected, just completely ignore the 6-star shards. Please, 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 if you're Uncollected, think about getting Cavalier. And I know 6 stars are nice and they're shiny, but even if you pull an amazing 6-star, so many of them require Awakening, and that's just so far off. And the investment of resources and the extra tier 5 basic, you're better off investing in your 5 stars for now. So I know if they're bright and they're shiny, just ignore them for now. That is my recommendation. So that is the deals. If there's anything in particular you have a question about your Cavalier and you have a question about a specific resource and what's best for you, feel free to hit me up in the comments or join the Discord and at me. I love to answer these questions and help out on a case-by-case scenario. But otherwise, I hope this resource helps, and I'll talk to you all later. Peace.